What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. And on this video, I'll be taking you through the ultimate guide to the upcoming Game Week 9. So now that Game Week 8 has concluded, and even though we have a lot of Champions League football coming up this midweek, I'm going to give you guys the refresh into the ultimate guide covering the talking points and the stats review for upcoming Game Week 9. Now, as always, we're going to end off with the captaincy debate, which this week is going to have an added bonus should you guys use the triple captaincy. So I absolutely love doing these ultimate guides, and as these game weeks kind of go by, the stats get better and better. So if you guys want to see the updated stats and the talking points, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So as always, the team stats are going to be coming up first. We'll be going over the attacking numbers and the defensive numbers, covering the top 6 and bottom 6 teams. So in terms of attack, the stat I use is XG non-penalty, just prefer the non-penalty variant, as it's a little bit more consistent. Now this will be for the entire 8 game weeks from the start of the season to the current game week, but maybe around game week 10 or game week 12, I'll be going over a 6-week average. So let's go over those top 6 teams, and we have had a few changes here. In terms of the XG non-penalty, we've got both North London clubs at the top. So yes, Spurs at the moment are the best attack going forward, and they have some great fixtures coming up, and that's why Heung-min Son's super popular as a Saka replacement. I personally have 3 Spurs assets at the moment. Can't say they've been the best performers, but the numbers still look pretty strong. Now next up is going to be Arsenal. A lot of us are looking to take out Saka for Son. Is that the right choice to actually go for though? Their numbers are still pretty respectable, but Arsenal have had some pretty easy fixtures, and the next 3 are slightly tougher. Then as expected, Liverpool and Man City coming up next, as well as Chelsea and finally Bournemouth. I know that Arsenal had 10 men, but Bournemouth is showing their attacking prowess in Game Week 8. We kind of spoke about this, should that Arsenal clean sheet be an expectation, as that Bournemouth attack is pretty strong, and I guess the rest is history. But most of these teams, especially the opening 5, are pretty expected, and I think it's going to be kind of navigating the good fixtures amongst these teams or changing the premiums. Quite an interesting FPL season at the moment. It seems like it's good to own one premium for their good fixtures and then rotate them out. So could we see Erling Haaland departing our team fairly shortly? Now on the right hand side, I'll be going over the bottom 6 teams just for kind of interest's sake. If you guys are looking for an attacker to get, maybe avoid these teams. Starting off with Ipswich, Leicester, Wolves, Everton, and then finally Palace and Newcastle. So Palace just played tonight, so don't worry, these stats are updated after the Forest game, and they were pretty lackluster in that performance. Just been a massive switch up from kind of the end of last season to this season with Crystal Palace. I know Elise is a massive loss, but just don't see in the same team. The rest of the teams though pretty expected. Ipswich, Leicester, newly promoted sides always battle, but the surprise for me has been Newcastle. They've also got off to a pretty bad start to the season. Now if you guys are looking for a striker like a Cunha or a DCL, the numbers aren't looking great, but Wolves are about to go on a massive green fixture run till about Christmas. So once again, left hand side, kind of target these attacks. On the right hand side, avoid these attacks. Or the inverse, if your defenders are facing these teams, the chance of a clean sheet should be pretty strong. Hoping that Flecken can finally keep the clean sheet against Ipswich in Game Week 9. But seeing these numbers makes me really regret the fact that Rico Lewis and Guardiola lost their clean sheet against Wolves. Speaking about kind of clean sheets, let's go over the defensive numbers now, rating the best defenses in terms of expected clean sheets. We've got a tie for first with Liverpool and also Spurs. So I don't really know where these Spurs numbers come from because their defensive numbers look great, but they aren't keeping clean sheets, and that's why I might actually self-fund defend this week. We also spoke about Fulham and how strong that defense has actually looked this Premier League season, and they're followed by Villa, Nottingham Forest, and finally Man City. So do I kind of regret going for someone like a Flecken over a Sales on the wild card after his 10-pointer last night? Maybe. Let's see what happens with these easier Brentford fixtures though. But finally, we do see Man City entering the top 6 best defenses. Doesn't help much though, as they lost their clean sheet against Wolves as mentioned. With Liverpool also some tough fixtures coming up, so I expect these numbers to probably decrease. And let's see what happens with that Spurs defense. Won't lie to you, if you guys look at these teams, not very popular in most people's defenses. Let's see if that changes in the future game weeks though. Now on the right hand side for me, this is the stat to kind of look at. It's going to be XG conceded, basically the worst defenses. And I've actually switched up the stat to expected goals conceded, because I don't care they lost their clean sheet, I want to see how many goals they're conceding. So unfortunately, I mentioned the newly promoted sides generally struggling. You guys can see it in effect here once again. Ipswich, Leicester and Southampton are your bottom 3. I'm expecting the Southampton numbers to decrease quite significantly after the Man City game in Game Week 9. Erling Haaland might have an absolute field day. But these fixtures definitely are the ones to target if your attackers are facing Ipswich, Leicester and Southampton. You're doing something right. You might want to have one of these players in your team just to see who their opponents are every single game week. Other than them though, we got Everton, Wolves and finally Brentford. We spoke about Flecken, but at least he's making out his saves. I think that Everton defence is 2 clean sheets on the trot, so their numbers are improving, and with Wolves I'm looking at an Aït-Nouri, but these defensive numbers don't lead to too much glory. I mentioned this though with the kind of poor attacking numbers, Wolves go on a massive fixture run, so these stats are relative to the team's kind of fixture difficulties. But once again, this should kind of have all your eyes on that Erling Haaland triple captaincy, as Southampton at home is definitely one of the best games this season. Now I got these stats all from Fantasy Football Fix, you guys can go check them out if you want to. I'm going to skip ahead. Let's go over some projected numbers. So probably the favorite part of these ultimate guides I introduced this Premier League season, it's going to be the expected clean sheet numbers as well as projected goals. Now these are going to come from the spread X data and therefore kind of the odds that people are looking at. We'd actually be interested to see how they track over the entire season. So let's switch it up and go over the defensive numbers first with the expected clean sheets, bringing up every fixture this game week. Now the first thing I want to point out is that you guys might notice the color coding is a little bit strange this week, and that's because there's so many teams with similar numbers. So once again, green is the best, we then go to grey, pink and finally maroon, and to compensate for the similar numbers, you'll notice a less number of maroon colors. So the higher the percentage, the better the chance of a clean sheet. You guys can see Man City at the top with 51%. So as a Rico Lewis and Guardiola owner, I'm pretty happy about this. Fingers crossed both of them do play though. Now the rest of the kind of green fixtures are going to be Brighton against a poor Wolves team. We then have Brentford, fingers crossed Flecken keeps a clean sheet. And then Aston Villa, Forest and Arsenal all have the same number. Quite surprised there, I won't lie about that Arsenal defensive clean sheet rating. 27% against Liverpool is not too shabby. Now this does raise the question, should you actually be playing your Arsenal defender for Game Week 9? I personally won't, and I do think this number will decrease with Saliba missing out. Will be quite interesting to see what you guys expect from this Arsenal vs Liverpool game. Looks like it might be quite a defensive one here. Now the next numbers are pretty kind of close amongst your kind of grey as well as pink. The worst teams though in terms of clean sheet projections are Newcastle, Ipswich, Wolves and finally Southampton. Just note there that Southampton percentage, only 3% expected clean sheet. I think that might be the lowest number I've actually seen. Now what you guys can also tell is which games are going to be quite exciting and quite boring. The West Ham vs United game, not too many clean sheets expected there, whereas the Leicester Forest game might be quite boring. Same could be said about the Everton Fulham one, but I also want to give a shout out to Spurs with 26%. The one that was quite surprising for me is going to be that kind of Brighton Wolves game. I probably would expect both teams to score, but Brighton having some good percentage to be honest. You guys can pause the screen if you want to kind of go more in depth into these numbers. Let's go over the projected goals though. So carrying on the trend of consistency, we're going to have some similar numbers here. That's why you guys will notice only 3 maroon fixtures, as they prioritize the better ratings. So the one number that should really stand out for you here is going to be the Man City numbers, 3.35 expected goals. Now we have seen some really good fixture ratings for Man City. You guys can remember when he scored that double Hattie back to back. But all I can say is that with the kind of goal share you would expect from Erling Haaland, it's probably going to be quite high. So if Man City are projected to score 3.35, Erling Haaland will hopefully have a large chunk of that. So ding ding ding, it's going to be the triple Camsey shout once again. Just keep it in the back of your mind though. Another team I'm super happy about is going to be Chelsea with 2.1, as the Cole Palmer owner hopefully gets involved. We then have Brighton as well, Brentford, and then finally Spurs. You can probably agree with all those ratings. I'm a little bit worried though if I was to go for someone like an Aït-Nouri. Doesn't look like the chance for a clean sheet is going to be that high, but Brighton do have some injuries up front. Now once again, you guys can analyze these numbers. For example, the Leicester Forest game as mentioned might be quite a boring one, whereas West Ham United might have a few goals. Want to just pause on that Arsenal Liverpool game because as you guys can see, the odds are projecting quite a boring game. Slight edge to Arsenal, but I guess they are at home. I will be interested to see though as the days go by, with Saliba out and potentially Saka, that number might decrease quite a bit. I do own quite a lot of these green fixtures though, so fingers crossed it's going to be a massive game week. You guys can pause the screen if you want to go more in depth now though. Now before we go over the final talking point about Camsey, I want to go over probably the biggest debate of Game Week 9, and that's should you sell Saka and for who. Now I'm recording this on Thursday evening before the Champions League games, so no idea if he's actually in the team for that fixture. My latest news is that Saka didn't train yesterday, and therefore I'm pretty sure he'll miss tonight in the Champions League. So if Saka misses tonight, that therefore means we're reliant on either early team sheet news or training pictures, or the worst one, Arteta press conferences. If you guys recall last week, Arteta said that Saka isn't that injured and he should be okay, and then he wasn't even in the squad for the game week. Now even if Saka is back fit, he has Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, which I don't think are the worst fixtures, except the game week 9 one upcoming against Liverpool. Great defense, as you guys would have seen, the odds on projecting that many goals, and therefore you might want to take advantage of some better fixtures. So my personal strategy is I'm waiting at the moment. Make sure that you guys stay tuned to my team selection coming up later in the week, as hopefully by then we have more context. At the moment though, I'm leaning towards actually selling Saka for some better fixtures, and my favorite is Heung-min Son. Now Son did rise in price on Monday evening, and therefore he comes in just below the 10 mil mark at a lovely 9.9. Still, he is cheaper than Saka though, only 0.2 now though, but you guys should still be able to afford him. Now the reason that I am targeting Son at the moment is even though Crystal Palace might not be the best fixture, Ipswich at home is definitely one to target. Might even be the best Camsey shout if he does make that game week, and therefore Son is heavily on kind of my list. But I'll also add is even against Man City, that might be a tougher game, but if you kind of analyze how the defense of Man City has been countered, it's those teams that park the bus and play that counter-attacking football. That should light a little bit of a bulb in your head. That's what Spurs have done in the previous seasons. They're almost Man City's kryptonite. So I would therefore argue that Man City game might not even be that bad for Heung-min Son, and therefore seems like an easy transfer, especially if Saka's out. A player I do want to kind of dangle in front of you is going to be the dangerous Phil Foden. We had news today that KDB is going to be missing for a while still. So with KDB out, Foden does look a shoo-in to start if he is okay, but obviously with Pep there's always some rotation. But if you were kind of building a freer team, Phil Foden would definitely probably be in for that Southampton at home game. He could have a share of those 3.35 expected goals. After that as well, the fixtures don't even look that bad. Bournemouth, Brighton, Spurs, I expect Man City to score on all of those, even the Liverpool away game. However, this comes down to kind of consistency, and if Heung-min Son is not injured, he definitely plays, whereas the same can't be said about Phil Foden in that Pep roulette. So that's why I do prefer Son at the moment, but I guess if you want to do another upgrade in another department and you need the funds, Foden could be there, but I still prefer the Spurs man. Let me know in the comments down below, are you guys taking Saka out this game week? Maybe you've already done it before the price rise. Saka will probably drop before game week 9. I'm going to wait and see for more news and take it in and assess the situation, but as mentioned, I'm probably leaning towards selling him. Just make sure though that you guys are analyzing the upcoming Champions League, Europa and Conference League games, as those stretch all the way to Thursday. Now the last talking point to go over is going to be the Camsey debate, and for me this week, it's not really a debate. So let's just quickly bring up the options. Obviously number 1 is going to be Erling Haaland with a massive 10.1 projected points. My second favorite option is going to be Cole Palmer against Newcastle at home with 6.7. And finally in Mbumo, I'm going to just give him a shout out because he's pretty consistent. But as mentioned, if you guys do have Erling Haaland, you definitely be captaining him. The question is, should you triple captain? Now I won't lie, when I saw these projections, 10.1 is simply massive, as the model is usually quite conservative on projected points. The only thing at the moment that makes me slightly wary is the fact that Erling Haaland isn't in the best of form, and with KDB out injured, he's the main kind of assister. So will we see a similar result from the previous 3 games where Erling Haaland has blanked? KDB was here and there when Erling Haaland was absolutely doing well at the start of the season. Still, the chance of a kind of Hattie or a double at least is going to be strong, Southampton can't defend at the moment. Now will I personally be triple captaining? I don't exactly know. If I hold out for this long, I might just keep it, but I'd probably say I'm 70-30% to not using it. That doesn't mean that you guys can't though, and I want you to comment down below if you guys are using the chip. Probably the best game week to use it if you want to use it in a single game week. This was a debate we had at the start of the season with this kind of unknown chip that's announced in January. If it should be used in a double game week, that kind of drops a game week to use the triple captaincy, and that's why not just use it and hope the mystery chip is advantageous in a double game week. Will be super interesting to see the effective ownership of Erling Haaland in game week 9. Is there anyone out there actually not captaining Erling Haaland? Now before I end the video, I want to give you guys a reminder, please, this is a Friday night deadline, so make sure that your guys' alarms are on. you can put notifications on my Discord server or my Twitter page, as I'll be going live for a deadline stream 1 hour before the deadline. So that can either be your alarm, or if you do miss that out, just make sure that you set your own one, but I'll be going over my final team selection in that deadline stream. Now, as always, if you guys have any other talking points you want covered, team specific or not team specific, join my Discord server, link in the description, as I'm far more active there. Follow me on Twitter as well while you're at it, also link in the description, and I'll be seeing you guys for the team selection fairly shortly. But this is basically a wrap of the video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please remember to like if you didn't subscribe if you have subscribed yet. Tons of content still coming up, team selection and deadline stream. Hopefully I'll see you guys there. But for the time being, I'm signing off from Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.